He said we can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, that are bad for them and irreversible by them, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting things that they like, cutting programs that they like. And you all know Russell Vought. He's become very popular recently because he can trim the budget to a level that you couldn't do any other way. So they're taking a risk by having a shutdown because of the shutdown, we can do things medically and other ways, including benefits. We can cut large numbers of people out. We don't want to do that, but we don't want fraud, waste, and abuse.
My people, a government shutdown is supposed to be a failure, a last resort when leaders just can't agree. But not this time. President Trump is treating this shutdown like an opportunity, a weapon. He's saying, quote, a lot of good can come from shutdowns. What kind of good? Well, cutting programs he doesn't like, punishing blue states, downsizing government itself. In 2013, when Obama faced a shutdown, he fenced off monuments and apologized to furloughed workers. But Trump, he's flipping the script. He's using the pain of a shutdown not as a warning, but as leverage. So today we're breaking it down, how Trump is weaponizing the shutdown, what it means for Democrats, and most importantly, what it means for ordinary people who are about to feel the squeeze. Because make no mistake, this isn't just politics. This is a power play with real lives on the line. Now, before we break it down, please do me a favor and subscribe to our channel and tap the notification bell for alerts. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, drop a comment, a super thanks, and consider joining our membership community for more exclusives. All right, now, let's get into it.
What are the consequences for people during the course of the shutdown? Well, first of all, let's talk about how we got here and who's responsible for this self-inflicted wound to the American economy. Here's Donald Trump.
If there is a shutdown, I think it would be a tremendously negative mark on the President of the United States. He's the one that has to get people together.
Okay, that was Donald Trump talking about who's responsible for a shutdown before he was president. As you might imagine, he's not blaming himself now, although he should. He's the President of the United States. Republicans control the House. Republicans control the Senate. Arguably, they control the Supreme Court of the United States. They control everything. They have responsibility to govern, and they can't meet that responsibility. Donald Trump was supposed to be the great negotiator, wasn't interested in negotiating a budget. In fact, part of the reason we are at this shutdown in this moment is that Democrats urged the president to get together with our leadership and hammer out some agreement to avoid a shutdown. And Trump initially agreed and then said no, canceled the meeting.
So to see how we got here, let's walk through America's last 3 major shutdowns. In 2013, Republicans, led by the Tea Party, forced a shutdown on President Obama. Their target, the Affordable Care Act. The shutdown lasted 16 days. And Obama's strategy was clear: make the pain visible and personal. He fenced off monuments like the Lincoln Memorial. He wrote federal workers a letter saying, quote, none of this is fair to you. The goal was to show that Republicans were holding the country hostage, and it worked. Polls showed that most Americans blamed Republicans, and Obama emerged stronger. 2019, now enter Trump. This was the longest shutdown in U.S. history, 35 days, triggered by his demand for billions to build his border wall. This time, the pain spread far and wide. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers missed 2 paychecks. Airports slowed down as TSA staff walked off. Farmers couldn't get loans. Even FBI agents complained about losing resources. Trump boasted that he was, quote, proud to shut it down for border security. But in the end, he lost the fight, caved without his wall money, and took the bulk of the blame. Now, fast forward to today, 2025. Trump is facing another shutdown. But this time, the story is completely different. Instead of apologizing like Obama or gambling for leverage like in 2019, Trump is embracing the chaos.
So we're doing well as a country, so the last thing we want to do is shut it down. But a lot of good can come down from shutdowns. We can get rid of a lot of things that we didn't want, and they'd be Democrat things.
He's saying, a lot of good can come from shutdowns. And by good, he means cutting programs he doesn't like, freezing funds in blue states, and downsizing agencies that have been in his crosshairs for years. So here's the evolution. Obama treated shutdowns as tragedies. Trump in 2019 treated them as leverage and lost. But Trump in 2025, he's treating this shutdown as a weapon, a deliberate tool to punish opponents, purge the federal government, and reward his base. That shift from failure to gamble to weapon is why this moment feels so dangerous. Because once a president starts to see shutdowns not as breakdowns, but as opportunities, the entire playbook changes.
So yes, this is what happens when you have a president unwilling to do their job. Now, in terms of what happens, the president has been threatening that if the government shut down, that he would use that opportunity, that excuse, to fire hundreds of thousands of federal workers. The reality is he's been illegally firing federal workers ever since he took office. But he may continue his illegal rampage firing other federal workers. More recently, he made this threat.
Because of the shutdown, we can do things medically and other ways, including benefits. We can cut large numbers of people out. We don't want to do that, but we don't want fraud, waste, and abuse. And, we're cutting that.
So now he's threatening to cut benefits for people. Is that possible? Is that legal? Well, it's not legal, but with Donald Trump, anything is possible.
Now, here's where this shutdown feels different from anything we've seen before. Trump isn't just letting the government grind to a halt. He's directing the pain. Even before the shutdown officially began, the White House telegraphed its plan. Russell Vought, Trump's budget director, held a call with House Republicans saying that this was a chance to, quote, rid the government of excess bureaucrats. Translation, use the shutdown as a tool to permanently downsize agencies he's never liked. Education, EPA, climate programs, you name it. And then the first shots were fired. $18 billion in infrastructure funds frozen in New York and New Jersey, home to Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. $8 billion in climate funds cut across 16 states. Now there's a pattern. Not one of those states supported Trump in 2016, 2020, or 2024. The Transportation Department even issued a statement blaming Schumer and Jeffries directly, saying the freeze was, quote, thanks to the Democrat shutdown. In other words, not just punishment, but a political message. Now, my people, let's be clear. When federal funds are pulled, it's not just politicians who feel it. It's nurses, teachers, commuters, first responders, ordinary people whose daily lives depend on those programs. But Trump isn't talking about them. He's saying there are a lot of people who are going to be affected, and they're Democrats. This is unprecedented. Past presidents try to soften the impact of shutdowns to show that they were acting responsibly. Trump is doing the opposite. He's weaponizing the shutdown to target blue states, starve programs that he doesn't like, and use pain as leverage. And the message is clear. If you're in a state that didn't vote for him, brace yourself.
Normally, in a government shutdown, most of Medicare is unaffected, most of Social Security payments go out unaffected, most of Medicaid is unaffected. There are some smallish impacts that are still very significant to those programs, but most benefits go out. But all bets are off with Donald Trump because he's threatened illegal action, and we have seen him take illegal action. He has promised to protect things like Medicaid and then cut $1 trillion out of Medicaid. So we don't really know what kind of damage the president is about to inflict, but we do know this. When Donald Trump says, I might cut benefits or I might fire people, I don't want to do this, of course, if he didn't want to do it, he wouldn't do it. This is Donald Trump using a shutdown of his own creation to try to cause more harm, more cruelty to the American people. And it's going to be the American people that suffer from this Trump shutdown.
Now, let's be honest. This shutdown isn't just about Democrats versus Republicans. It's about a long-running conservative project, the dream of shrinking the federal government. You see, for decades, figures on the right have talked about dismantling what they call the administrative state. Ronald Reagan once joked that the 9 most terrifying words in the English language were, quote, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Steve Bannon, one of Trump's earliest advisors, said the real goal was the, quote, "deconstruction of the administrative state." Russell Vought, Trump's current budget director, has been laying the groundwork for years. He's drawn up plans to slash agencies, fire federal workers, and gut programs that don't fit with Trump's agenda. And now, he sees this shutdown as the perfect opening. On a call with House Republicans, he framed it exactly that way, a chance to, quote, "permanently rid the government of programs and people they never wanted in the first place." Think about the implications. Agencies like the Department of Education, the EPA, or federal research labs that fund renewable energy, all of those have been in Trump's crosshairs. With a shutdown, the administration can furlough workers, freeze funds, and then argue later, do we really need these people? Do we really need these programs? It's not just short-term pain. It's a strategy for permanent downsizing.
And they will suffer because a lot of federal employees, hundreds of thousands of them, will be furloughed. Others who are essential workers like air traffic controllers or TSA, they will still be required to show up at work, but they won't get paid. So they'll be forced to work without pay. Now, all of these workers, whether they're furloughed or they're required to show up for work, all of them will receive back pay once the government shutdown is over. But nevertheless, this is a tremendous hardship for a lot of federal employees. That is, they still have rent to pay, they still have a mortgage to pay, they still have food to buy, they still have medicine to buy, and they're not going to get a paycheck during the course of this shutdown.
Every shutdown is really a game of chicken. And right now, both sides think they're holding the winning hand. For Democrats, this shutdown is about showing they can fight. They're the minority in Congress. Their legislative power is limited. So they've turned to the shutdown as their biggest stage, yes. Now, Chuck Schumer himself admitted it. Quote, "It's as good as a shot as we're going to get." And their goal? Force a national conversation about healthcare costs and show voters, especially younger Democrats, that they're willing to stand up to Trump. And that's important, right? Because polls show that younger Democrats under 45 are the most supportive of using a shutdown as leverage. For party leaders worried about turnout in the midterms, this looked like the kind of fight that might energize their base. But here's the gamble. Most Americans don't want to shut down at all. A recent Times Siena poll found that nearly 2/3 of voters said Washington should compromise and avoid it. Independents, the voters who often decide elections, said they would blame both parties. That means Democrats are betting they can take the hit now, but score points later for standing up to Trump. Risky. Now, look at Trump's side. His calculus is different. He's not trying to minimize the pain. He's trying to weaponize it. By targeting blue states, freezing funds, and threatening jobs, he puts pressure on Democratic leaders to fold first. At the same time, he gets to show his base that he's draining the swamp and cutting government programs they never liked in the first place. And it's classic Trump. Create a crisis, then use it to consolidate power. So what we have is two competing gambles. Democrats betting on moral high ground and voters' sympathy, and Trump betting on raw power and pain. And here's the truth. Unlike 2013, unlike 2019, this isn't just about who gets the blame. It's about whether a president can redefine a shutdown from political embarrassment into a political weapon and get away with it.
Indeed, this is what Democrats have been fighting to prevent in these budget negotiations. Our key demand in these budget negotiations has been, we'll fund some of your priorities, but our priority is making sure the American people can afford their health care. And so we need to stop these premium increases that are going to result from your elimination of tax credits under the Affordable Care Act. That's been a key priority for Democrats. So during the shutdown, people are likely to see notices about their health care costs going through the roof. And it's not just those costs. Utility bills are about to go up quite dramatically because the Trump administration is killing off renewable energy. More than 90% of new energy coming online is renewable. You take that power offline, you add the increased demand from these huge data centers, and utility bills are going through the roof. So the last thing we need during this period of increasing inflation, during this period of job stagnation, what is called stagflation, the last thing we need is the kind of body blow to the economy that comes with a government shutdown. But that is where Donald Trump is leading the country. Now, we are ready to negotiate an end to this. We want to see an end to this. Democrats didn't want to see a shutdown at all. But it requires the Republicans to come to the table. It requires them to agree not just to some of our priorities as Democrats, and most particularly avoiding these healthcare costs increasing, but also it requires language in this legislation that prevents them from cheating on the deal once the deal is inked. Because what we've seen is when we do reach a budget deal with the administration accepts the deal and then just decides they're not going to honor it.
Now let's cut through the politics for a moment, because while Trump and Democrats play chess in Washington, the pawns are ordinary people. Start with federal workers. Hundreds of thousands are now either furloughed or working without pay. TSA agents, air traffic controllers, USDA inspectors, even FBI staff, all forced to keep America running while not knowing when their next paycheck will come. For families living paycheck to paycheck, that's not politics, that's survival. Then there are the commuters. The $18 billion freeze on infrastructure funding in New York and New Jersey doesn't punish politicians. It punishes nurses, teachers, and everyday workers who rely on safe, reliable transit just to get to their jobs. And climate programs. No, it's not Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries who feel the loss of $8 billion. It's communities already dealing with floods, hurricanes, and wildfires who lose access to critical federal support. And it doesn't stop there. Courts across the country are grinding to a halt. Judges are being asked to delay cases because Justice Department lawyers don't have funding. Farmers can't access loans. Small businesses can't get SBA support. Even the Federal Reserve may be flying blind because crucial government data isn't being collected or released during the shutdown. But here's the thing. Trump isn't downplaying this pain. He's amplifying it and then pointing the finger at Democrats. Agencies are updating their websites with language blaming Democrats. Furloughed workers' email auto replies literally say, "Thanks to the Democrat shutdown, I can't respond." So the people bearing the brunt aren't in the halls of power. They're the single mom in DC who works for the federal government and just missed her rent. They're the small town farmer waiting for a loan. They're the college student relying on a grant. Shutdowns may start in Washington, but their impact rockets everywhere. And this one, because it's being deliberately weaponized, is hitting people harder and faster than ever before. So, my people, what does all of this mean? Shutdowns used to be political accidents, the byproduct of dysfunction in Washington. Embarrassing, disruptive, but temporary. Presidents of both parties tried to avoid them, or at least soften the blow when they happened. But Trump is changing the playbook. He's showing that a shutdown doesn't have to be a failure. It can be a strategy, a chance to punish blue states, gut programs he's long targeted, and permanently shrink parts of the federal government. And that sets a dangerous precedent. If Trump can rebrand shutdowns from breakdowns into weapons, what stops future presidents from doing the same? Imagine every budget fight turning into a hostage situation where federal workers, families, and entire states are pawns in a larger political war. It raises a bigger question. What happens to democracy when the government itself becomes a weapon? When the systems designed to serve people are used instead to punish them? Because here's the truth. This isn't just about funding bills or partisan blame. It's about the kind of government America will have in the future. A government that bends under the weight of political games, or one that still sees its first duty as serving its people. And right now, that answer is very much on the line. So, my people, where do we go from here? As I said, shutdowns used to be failures, but now Trump is trying to make them weapons. And the questions we have to ask is this: if presidents can use shutdowns to punish opponents, shrink the government, and target communities like ours, what does that mean for democracy itself? Because once you normalize turning the government against its own people, where does that road end? Think about that and let me know what you think in the comments. And if you got value from this breakdown, hit subscribe, tap the bell for alerts, and share this with someone who needs to understand what's really going on. Because when the system becomes a weapon, my people, silence is not an option. That's it for today's show. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Sandra Babu-Boateng, and until next time, take care. Hey you! Thanks so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and join the family. Also, visit face2faceafrica.com for your daily news and updates on what's going on within the global Black community so you can stay informed.